First Contact's price. The Kraxan warship emerged from hyperspace like a predator breaking the surface of still water. Its crystalline hull caught the light of Earth's sun, refracting it into deadly rainbow patterns across the void. On the bridge, Fleet Commander Zextal clicked his mandibles in disappointment as he studied the primitive defense satellites orbiting the blue planet below. "These humans," he rumbled, his translator converting the clicks and chirps into standard galactic speech, "they'd protect their world with toys." His command staff chittered in agreement, their compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays showing Earth's defensive capabilities. But down in the United Earth Defense Command bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Director Sarah Chen watched the alien vessel's arrival with grim satisfaction. For 15 years, she had prepared humanity for this moment, ever since the first hidden probes detected advanced civilizations among the stars. While the world's governments publicly focused on climate change and economic recovery, Chen's classified organization had been building humanity's true defensive capabilities. "They're right on schedule," she murmured, turning to her chief strategist, Dr. James Okonjo. "Are the nest protocols ready?" James nodded, his fingers dancing across the quantum interface. "All 30 million nodes are active and synchronized. Every smart device on Earth is now part of our defense grid, though their owners don't know it yet." The Networked Emergency Strategic Technology Protocol had been Chen's masterstroke. Instead of building obvious military installations that would draw alien attention, she had helped design consumer technology with hidden military capabilities. Every smartphone, self-driving car, and home automation system contained dormant defensive protocols that could be activated in an emergency. Above the planet, Zextal prepared to deliver his species' standard greeting to primitive worlds, a demonstration of overwhelming force. "Target their largest military installation," he ordered. "Show these humans the futility of resistance." The Kraxan weapon systems hummed to life, gathering energy from quantum reservoirs. But as the targeting computers locked onto Peterson Space Force Base, something unexpected happened. Every electronic device on Earth pulsed in unison. The attack never reached its target. Instead, millions of coordinated signals from Earth's devices created a complex interference pattern that scattered the Kraxan energy beam harmlessly into space. In the UEDC bunker, Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Initial defense successful," James reported, monitoring the Nest network's performance. "But they'll adapt quickly. The Kraxan don't become a galactic empire by giving up easily." He was right. Zextal's initial surprise turned to rage as his tactical officer explained what had happened. "Impossible," he snarled. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. They shouldn't be capable of this level of coordination." "Sir," his science officer interrupted, mandibles quivering with excitement, "I'm detecting unusual patterns in their civilian communications network. It appears their entire planetary infrastructure is part of their defense system." Zextal's compound eyes narrowed as he studied the new data. These humans were cleverer than expected, but they were still primitive. He had not become the youngest fleet commander in Kraxan history by underestimating his opponents. "Launch the cybernetic probes," he ordered. "If they want to use their civilian infrastructure against us, we'll turn it against them." On Earth, Chen watched as thousands of small objects deployed from the Kraxan vessel. Each one was barely larger than a hummingbird, designed to infiltrate and corrupt electronic systems. But she had prepared for this too. "Activate the DI-C protocols," she commanded. James hesitated for just a moment before entering the command sequence. The Distributed Intelligence Counter-Engagement System was experimental, and no one was quite sure how it would perform in real combat. As the Kraxan probes descended into Earth's atmosphere, they encountered something unprecedented. Every device they attempted to corrupt instead corrupted them, using advanced viral algorithms that evolved faster than the probe's defenses could adapt. The DI-C system turned the alien technology's own complexity against it, creating cascade failures that spread through the probe network like wildfire. In orbit, Zextal watched in disbelief as his probe network collapsed. These humans had not only anticipated his attacks, but had prepared countermeasures that showed a deep understanding of Kraxan technology. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he considered the implications. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're detecting energy buildups across the planet's surface. They appear to be preparing a counterattack." Chen stood in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the status of Earth's defenses. The Nest and Dai-C systems had performed better than expected, but she knew this was just the beginning. The real test would come when the Kraxan realized they weren't dealing with a primitive species playing with technology they didn't understand, but with humans who had spent years preparing for this exact moment. "Send the signal to all UEDC facilities," she ordered. "Operation Dead Switch is now active. Let's show our visitors why you should never judge a species by their satellites." As warning klaxons sounded in the bunker, Shen thought about how the Kraxan had made the same mistake so many others had made throughout human history, assuming that technological advancement was the only measure of a civilization's capability. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, but their ability to adapt and innovate in ways their enemies could never predict. The real battle for Earth was about to begin. Operation Dead Switch. The activation of Operation Dead Switch transformed Earth's cityscape into something alien yet familiar. Every digital billboard, autonomous vehicle, and smart building became part of humanity's defense network. In New York, holographic advertisements flickered and reformed into early warning systems. In Tokyo, swarms of delivery drones reorganized into surveillance networks. In Lagos, smart traffic systems began coordinating civilian evacuations while simultaneously laying traps for potential ground forces. Fleet Commander Zextal watched the planetary transformation with growing unease. His tactical displays showed millions of network devices activating simultaneously, but their purpose remained unclear. The Kraxan Empire had conquered dozens of worlds, and none had ever displayed this level of coordination. "Analysis," he demanded, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. His science officer's compound eyes darted between multiple displays. "The humans are repurposing their civilian infrastructure, sir, but the pattern makes no tactical sense. They're expending enormous energy to reconfigure systems that have no military value." In the UEDC bunker, Sarah Chen monitored the deployment with satisfaction. "How long until full activation?" she asked James, who was coordinating with defense centers across the globe. 30 seconds, he replied, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. "Though I still think this is risky. We're exposing our entire defensive capability at once." Chen smiled grimly. "That's exactly what we want them to think. Humans didn't survive this long by being predictable." Above them, Zextal finally lost patience. "Enough games," he snarled. "Launch the ground forces. Let's see how their clever networks handle real warriors." Kraxan drop pods streaked through Earth's atmosphere, each containing dozens of cybernetically enhanced soldiers. They landed in major cities across the globe, their crystalline armor gleaming as they emerged ready for conquest. But the resistance they encountered defied all their combat protocols. In Seoul, a squad of Kraxan warriors found themselves trapped when every autonomous vehicle in a 10-block radius formed an impenetrable barrier, their metal chassis reconfiguring into makeshift fortifications. In Mumbai, smart dust particles used for weather monitoring coalesced into clouds that shorted out Kraxan targeting systems. In Sao Paulo, the very streets seemed to come alive as nanite-infused asphalt shifted and flowed, transforming urban terrain into a battlefield that favored the defenders. "Impossible," Zextal's ground commander reported, his transmission filled with static. "Their technology is primitive, yet they're using it in ways our combat simulators never predicted." Chen watched the battles unfold through countless feeds. "Phase 2, she ordered. "Show them why humanity stopped building obvious weapons decades ago." James initiated the sequence, and across the planet, humanity's true defensive innovations revealed themselves. Park benches transformed into electromagnetic pulse generators. Children's toys became autonomous drones. Even the paint on buildings turned out to contain programmable nanites that could disrupt cracks in energy shields. "Sir," Zextal's tactical officer reported, mandibles trembling, "we're losing ground forces faster than we can deploy them." These humans, they've turned their entire civilization into a weapon. But Chen knew they couldn't maintain this level of defense indefinitely. The energy requirements alone were staggering, and some systems were already showing strain. They needed to move to the next phase before the Kraxan realized the true limitations of their technology. "Begin Protocol Omega," she commanded. "It's time to show them our real surprise." James looked up sharply. "That system hasn't been tested. We don't know if—" "We don't have a choice," Chen interrupted. "The Kraxan are adapting faster than expected. If we don't act now, we'll lose our advantage." As she spoke, the alien forces were indeed learning. Their warriors began using more primitive weapons, realizing that simple projectiles were more effective when fighting an enemy who could hack any energy-based technology. Zextal himself had ordered his ship to maintain distance from Earth, recognizing that proximity only gave the humans more opportunities to infiltrate his systems. But humanity's greatest innovation wasn't in their repurposed technology or hidden weapons. It was in something far more fundamental, something the Kraxan, with all their advanced technology, had never considered possible. As Protocol Omega activated, every human-made computer system on Earth began operating in perfect quantum synchronization, creating a planetary consciousness that existed for microseconds at a time, just long enough to coordinate defenses with impossible precision, while remaining too brief for the Kraxan to detect or counter. "What are we seeing?" Zextal demanded as his forces faced increasingly coordinated resistance. "How are they predicting our every move?" The answer would have shocked him. Humanity hadn't built a better weapon. They'd turned their entire civilization into a distributed artificial intelligence that could think and adapt faster than any hierarchical military command structure. The real question was, how long could they maintain it before the system overloaded? And what would happen with the silent strike? The quantum synchronized defense system had bought Earth precious time, but Sarah Chen knew they couldn't maintain it forever. In the UEDC bunker, warning lights flashed as power grids across the planet strained under the load. They needed to strike back, and they needed to do it before their advantages slipped away. "Status report on Project Whisper," she demanded, her eyes fixed on the global defense grid's deteriorating metrics. James pulled up a secure hologram showing a network of stealth satellites that had remained dormant since their secret deployment 5 years ago. "Ready for activation. Though I still think this is too aggressive. If it fails, we lose anyway," Chen interrupted. "The Kraxan aren't just here to conquer us. Their attacks on civilian infrastructure prove they want to eliminate our ability to resist. We strike now." In orbit, Fleet Commander Zextal was finally beginning to understand the true nature of his enemy. These humans weren't merely clever with their technology. They were dangerous precisely because they didn't think like a spacefaring civilization should. Every time his forces adapted to one of their defensive innovations, the humans changed tactics completely. "Status of the ground invasion," he demanded. His ground commander's image flickered in the holographic display. "We're holding positions in major cities, but casualties are significant. The humans seem to have hidden weapons and defensive systems in everyday objects. We can't trust anything we encounter." Zextal's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Empire's standard conquest protocols weren't working. Perhaps it was time to abandon subtlety and simply overwhelm the humans with brute force. He was about to order his fleet to begin planetary bombardment when his tactical officer screamed. "Energy spike. Massive quantum fluctuation detected." Project Whisper activated simultaneously across the globe. The dormant satellites came to life, but they didn't attack with conventional weapons. Instead, they began broadcasting precisely modulated quantum signals that interacted with the exotic particles the Kraxan used to power their ships. The effect was devastating. Kraxan energy weapons misfired, shields fluctuated, and their quantum communications network dissolved into chaos. The humans had spent years studying trace emissions from alien ships, learning exactly how their technology worked, and developing countermeasures that targeted its fundamental principles. Impossible. Zextal raged as his flagship's systems went haywire. Their technology is too primitive to affect quantum fields. But humanity's attack was just beginning. As the Kraxan fleet struggled with failing systems, thousands of small objects detached from Earth's defunct satellites and defunct space debris. These were the real weapons of Project Whisper, quantum-entangled nanite swarms that had been disguised as space junk, waiting for this moment. The swarms invaded Kraxan ships through compromised shields, spreading through their systems like a virus. But instead of destroying the alien technology, they began reprogramming it, turning the advanced systems against their users in ways the Kraxan had never imagined possible. In the UEDC bunker, Chen watched the chaos unfold. "Begin Phase 2 of the strike," she ordered. "Show them why humans are the most dangerous species they've ever encountered." Across the planet, civilian power grids suddenly surged with impossible energy levels. The quantum synchronization that had been defending Earth transformed into a weapon, channeling power through the nanite swarms to overwhelm Kraxan systems completely. Zextal watched in horror as his mighty fleet began to turn against itself. Ships fired on each other, responding to phantom commands. Navigation systems sent vessels on collision courses. Communication channels broadcast human messages in perfect Kraxan language. "How?" he demanded. "How can they control our technology so completely?" The answer was both simple and terrifying. Humans hadn't tried to match Kraxan technology. They'd spent years figuring out how to hack it, compromise it, and turn it against itself. Every defensive measure had been a calculated move to gather more data about how Kraxan systems worked. But victory wasn't assured. The quantum synchronization was burning out power grids across Earth. The nanite swarms were losing coherence as the Kraxan finally began finding countermeasures. And worst of all, long-range sensors detected more Kraxan ships approaching. A backup fleet Zextal had summoned when he first realized this conquest wouldn't be easy. Chen studied the tactical displays, watching their advantage slowly slip away. "How long until total system failure?" she asked James. 20 minutes, maybe less," he replied grimly. "The power grid can't handle this level of quantum manipulation. When it fails," she nodded, "they would lose control of the nanite swarms. The defensive grid would collapse. Earth would be vulnerable again. Unless—" "Initialize Protocol 0, she said quietly. James paled. "That's not a defense system. If we activate it. If we don't, humanity ends today," Chen interrupted. "Send the code. It's time to show the Kraxan why you should never corner a species that has spent its entire history learning to survive against superior forces." As James entered the activation sequence, Shen watched the tactical displays and hoped humanity was ready for what came next. Because Protocol 0 wasn't just another weapon. It was something that would change both humanity and their attackers forever. Neural warfare. Protocol 0 was humanity's darkest secret and greatest innovation. While the Kraxan had focused on developing ever more powerful weapons, humans had taken a different path. They had learned to weaponize consciousness itself. In the UEDC bunker, Sarah Chen watched as the activation sequence began. The quantum synchronized network that had been coordinating Earth's defenses transformed, its purpose shifting from physical warfare to something far more subtle and devastating. Broadcasting on all frequencies, James reported, his voice tense. "Quantum entanglement stable. Neural pattern synchronization at 87% and climbing." The first indication that something was wrong came from the Kraxan ground forces. Warriors suddenly stopped in mid-attack, their cybernetic implants becoming conduits for an invasion they had never been trained to resist. The human consciousness network wasn't just coordinating defenses anymore. It was reaching into the Kraxen's neural interfaces, uploading human thoughts, memories, and emotions directly into their minds. Fleet Commander Zextal felt it too, a strange sensation creeping through his neural command link. "What is this?" he demanded, his mandibles clicking in distress. Some kind of primitive psychological warfare. But it was far more than that. Humanity had discovered something the Kraxen had never considered. Consciousness itself could be quantized, transmitted, and weaponized. Every piece of human technology, from smartphones to satellites, began broadcasting a coordinated neural pattern that overwhelmed the Kraxen's cybernetic systems. Signal penetration at 92%, James announced. Their neural networks are adapting, but slower than predicted. We might actually. A warning klaxon cut him off. On the main display, red indicators showed power grids failing across the planet. The energy required to maintain the quantum consciousness network was pushing human technology beyond its limits. Chen gripped the command console. Reroute all non-essential power. Shut down everything except life support and Protocol Zero transmission. We only need a few more minutes. Across Earth, cities went dark as every scrap of power was diverted to maintain the neural broadcast. But in those darkened cities, something extraordinary was happening. Kraxen warriors were experiencing human emotions, human memories, human ways of thinking. Their rigid, hierarchical consciousness was being invaded by humanity's chaos, creativity, and indomitable will to survive. On his flagship, Zextal fought against the alien thoughts invading his mind. He saw Earth through human eyes, not as a primitive world to be conquered, but as a home to be protected at all costs. He felt human emotions, love, fear, hope, determination. Most disturbingly, he began to understand human ingenuity not as a primitive trait to be dismissed, but as something far more dangerous than any weapon. "Shut down all neural interfaces," he commanded, his voice shaking. "Sever the connection to the command network." But it was too late. The quantum consciousness transmission had already infected his fleet's neural network. Ship after ship fell silent as their crews struggled with the psychological invasion. The backup fleet arriving from hyperspace flew straight into the neural broadcast, their crews overwhelmed before they could even raise their shields. In the UEDC bunker, warning lights flashed as power systems reached critical levels. "Grid failure in 3 minutes," James reported. "Neural pattern synchronization holding at 97%, but we're losing transmission power." Chen nodded grimly. "It's enough. Look at their fleet." The Kraxen ships hung motionless in orbit, their crews paralyzed by the neural invasion. But more than that, they were changing. The rigid hierarchy of their neural network was dissolving, replaced by something new. A hybrid consciousness that combined Kraxen technology with human creativity and determination. "What have we done to them?" James whispered. "We've shown them who we really are," Chen replied. "Not just our technology or our weapons, but our minds, our way of thinking, our humanity." The power grid finally failed, plunging Earth into darkness. The quantum consciousness network dissolved, its energy demands finally overwhelming human technology. But as emergency systems slowly restored power to cities across the planet, it became clear that the darkness wasn't necessary anymore. The Kraxen fleet remained silent in orbit, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not the silence of defeat, but of transformation. Fleet Commander Zextal's next transmission wasn't a surrender, it was a request for dialogue. His voice was changed, struggling with new concepts and emotions. "We need to understand what you are, how you think, why you fight this way." Chen smiled tiredly. "That's the difference between us, Commander. You fight to conquer, we fight to survive. And in doing so, we've changed you more than your weapons could ever change us." But as the adrenaline of victory faded, she knew this wasn't really the end. They had won the battle, but they had also created something unprecedented, a bridge between two fundamentally different types of consciousness. The real challenge would be what came next. Victory's edge. Dawn broke over a changed Earth. As the sun rose over darkened cities and silent battlefields, humanity faced not just the aftermath of victory, but the dawn of a new era. In the UEDC bunker, Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display showing the transformed Kraxan fleet in orbit, their crystalline ships reflecting the first rays of morning light. Neural pattern analysis complete, James reported, studying the data streams from their remaining active sensors. The consciousness merger appears stable. They're not just thinking like us, they're beginning to understand us. Chen nodded, remembering the desperate gamble that had led them here. Protocol Zero hadn't just been a weapon. It had been an act of desperate communication, forcing the Kraxan to experience humanity's perspective in the most direct way possible. Above them, Fleet Commander Zextal, or what Zextal had become, coordinated with his transformed fleet. The rigid hierarchy of Kraxan command had dissolved, replaced by something new, a hybrid decision-making structure that combined their advanced technology with human adaptability. "We request permission to land." Zextal's transmission carried new harmonics, his translator struggling to convey concepts that hadn't existed in the Kraxan language before. "Not as conquerors, but as students, we need to understand what you have done, what you have made us become." In cities across Earth, Kraxan warriors who had been bent on conquest now stood in confusion, their neural implants humming with foreign thoughts and emotions. They looked at the human world around them with new eyes, seeing not primitive technology to be destroyed, but innovation that challenged everything they had believed about advancement. "It's not just about the technology, is it?" One warrior asked the human defender in the ruins of Shanghai. "Your strength, it comes from something else." Chen watched these interactions through surviving surveillance feeds, knowing that humanity's greatest victory hadn't come from destroying their enemy, but from forcing them to evolve. The Kraxan had arrived believing themselves superior, only to discover that true advancement wasn't measured in weapon strength or shield capacity, but in the ability to adapt, to think differently, to change. "Begin recovery protocols," she ordered, her voice carrying to defense centers around the world. "And prepare for diplomatic contact. Our visitors have a lot to learn about being human." The next few days revealed the full scope of humanity's achievement. The Kraxan, their consciousness irrevocably altered by Protocol Zero, began sharing their technology, not as conquerors demonstrating their superiority, but as equals eager to understand how humans would adapt and improve it. "Your quantum technologies are impressive," James admitted during a technical exchange with a Kraxan engineer, "but you never considered using them the way we did." The engineer, their compound eyes now showing hints of human expression, nodded. "We built our empire on power. You built your defense on innovation. The difference is significant." But victory had come at a cost. Earth's power grid would take months to fully recover. Cities lay damaged from the initial invasion. And most significantly, humanity had revealed its greatest secrets, both technological and psychological, to a species that had tried to conquer them. Was it worth it? James asked Chen as they watched Kraxan ships landing peacefully in designated zones around the globe, showing them everything about us, changing them so fundamentally. Chen thought about the alternatives, about planetary bombardment, about extinction, about the end of human civilization. "We did what humans always do," she replied. "We survived by adapting. And we won by forcing our enemies to adapt with us." In orbit, the newly transformed Kraxan fleet received transmissions from their empire. More ships were coming. Not invasion forces, but diplomatic vessels, their commanders both alarmed and intrigued by what had happened to Zextal's fleet. "They will try to understand," Zextal warned during a conference with Earth's leaders. "But they cannot, not until they experience what we have experienced. Your Protocol Zero, it has shown us that true power lies not in weapons, but in the ability to change, to think differently, to become something new." Chen looked out at the gathering of human and Kraxan leaders, seeing not the end of a war, but the beginning of something unprecedented. Humanity had defended itself not by outgunning their enemies, but by outthinking them, by turning the very consciousness of their attackers into a bridge between species. "We never wanted to fight you," she told the assembled delegates, "but we were ready to do whatever it took to survive. In doing so, we've given both our species a chance to become something greater than either of us could have been alone." As the sun set on this new era, satellites detected more Kraxan ships entering the solar system. But Earth didn't activate its defenses. They didn't need to. Their greatest weapon had never been their technology, their tactics, or even Protocol Zero. It had been humanity itself, their creativity, their adaptability, their unwavering determination to survive and thrive against any odds. The universe would never be the same, and neither would they.